The Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, or DARPA, is contracting crypto analytics provider Inca Digital to research national security risks posed by cryptocurrencies. Joining us now with the details is Adam Zarazinski. He's the CEO of Inca Digital. Hello there, Adam. Good morning. Thanks for joining us this morning. So maybe you could start off by telling us some of the findings that your research has found in terms of, what you've told and provided information to DARPA about cryptocurrencies and security risks.
Yeah, so we're not actually providing findings directly to the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. What we're doing is we are taking some of the tools that we use in the commercial sector and modifying those tools for use in the national security sector and within the intelligence community. So we're essentially building technology that they can use to identify risks to U.S. national security globally. I think that there's been a fairly wide acknowledgement, right, that forensics, blockchain forensics are great and important, but can only get you so far. The DoD kind of writ large wants to connect crypto back to the real world and for kind of like bigger, kind of chunkier national security issues, right? Things that just go beyond crime. How crypto is being used to fund North Korean nuclear proliferation efforts, how crypto may be used to evade U.S. sanctions globally, what the Chinese are doing to use crypto to de-dollarize in global markets. It's things like that we're looking into. But really what we're doing is we're building technology. So there's research, there's true research here, but that research is more in how do we build technology to advance the capabilities of the Department of Defense.
Okay. I guess, from there, well, go ahead, Lawrence.
So, I mean, the way it seems, though, that there are basically two types of threats. For instance, there's the economic threat that crypto provides. And we have, I've heard from former U.S. officials, at least, this idea that the North Korean government may be involved in tremendous amounts of market manipulation in the likes of Bitcoin and some of the stable coins. You could probably speak to that, but also that the blockchain itself might also provide some amount of risk based on how data is carried across blockchains, for instance, and the immutability of it makes it harder to stamp out. So which is the bigger threat to national security right now, or is perceived to be the bigger threat?
Yeah, I'm not gonna speak for what the DoD thinks is or may think is the bigger threat. I think that actually taking a step back, I first want to emphasize that a lot of this the technological development that we are doing is ultimately right to foster innovation here in the United States. There's also a wide acknowledgement that while there are national security issues, it is also a national security imperative in the U.S. to foster innovation here, to have startups in the U.S. and not leaving to go overseas. So at first there's this balance, right, between making sure that the DoD and other U.S. government agencies can ultimately catch the bad guys. And then along with that, still fostering innovation here. So there's that. That is still priority number one. Although it may not seem that way sometimes within the U.S. government, it is. Second, what you said is a good point. So there's this huge element of not just theft or like hacks. But also market fraud, right? Which has wide-ranging implications, not just for U.S. national security, but in Inca Digital's belief, also for crypto, right? If there's front running and wash trading and market manipulation, that in turn impacts the crypto ecosystem's market integrity, which slows the community's growth globally. It is a big issue, and so this is why we kind of, in terms of data collection, we take a wider view of the data that we collect. So we do collect blockchain data and run our own nodes, similar to the forensics companies, but we also have a heavy emphasis on collecting market data. So we're connected to about 350 trading venues globally, centralized exchanges, DEXs, peer-to-peer networks, things like that. We're also connecting to social media. So we collect data from Twitter and Reddit, Telegram, Discord. And we bring all that data into our system and then basically try to connect crypto to the real world, analyze markets, and ensure market integrity.
Just want to ask you a two-part question. Go ahead.
What about the aspect of using the blockchain itself to store data that may be it seems some of the biggest concerns of national security came from revealing a lot of internal documents and things like that, so to speak, at least if you were to talk to some of the politicians about what's been a threat to us. Do you think that is potentially, or is that something that's also a concern at all of the DoD, or is it still focused on the economic aspects?
It's mostly focused on the economic aspect. And okay. I would say economic aspect, and also this, on the other hand, kind of hacks and scams. So hacks and scams, I think, are probably the other really big one, just because on the face, so we talked about the economic aspect, and on the face of scams and hacks, they'll sometimes come out in the press as, this guy who invested $100,000 in Idaho was, scammed out of the money or something like that, and it's kind of like an anecdotal evidence of what's happening on surface level, but what's really happening in the background is these are well-organized transnational criminal groups, often backed by state actors. So I think that those are the two main focuses.
Are there certain cryptocurrencies that cannot be tracked? However, for instance, we're hearing news that in China, they're testing their CBDC with cross-border payments with Taiwan and Hong Kong. Is that something that just cannot be tracked? And I guess the follow-up to that would be, what are the concerns for privacy here to make sure that, people aren't being tracked in the minutiae of microtransactions they're making day by day?
Yeah, two fair questions. On the first, so you're right, like on blockchain, right? We cannot necessarily collect a ton of data from some privacy coins, from the Chinese CBDC. There's just nothing there. That doesn't mean that we can't do anything, though. So we can still collect data, for example, on people discussing how they use the Chinese CBDC on WeChat, as one example. We can even grab some market data from OTC providers that are interacting with Chinese markets. So there are ways to collect data, again, that are outside just blockchain data. So that's the answer to the first question. And then on the second question, privacy issues, it's fair as well. The DoD is not in the business of wanting to know the minutia of, in particular, of U.S. citizens and what they're doing. This isn't some play on surveilling Americans and what they're doing with crypto. This is looking at how crypto, what's going to happen with crypto in global markets in the next 10 years. And what role can the U.S. economy play within that?